Hey, everybody, I'm Scott Wikle. You're listening to My Kind of Country right here on MKOCRadio.com. My guest tonight is a fellow Michigan resident, and he has sent me his brand new CD called Screen Door. And I'll tell you what, it's a fabulous mix of country music, cowboy music, a little bit of rock and roll in there, just a little bit of everything, some cowboy poetry, and he's a fabulous songwriter, fabulous singer, and I'm real pleased to have him on the show tonight with me. This is Bob Marshall. Bob, how are you tonight?
Good, Scott. How you doing?
Fantastic. Thank you so much for taking time to be on my show.
I'm happy to do it.
Well, give me a little bit of background on yourself. Are you from Michigan originally?
Kind of. I was born in Michigan, but then I lived out in Missouri and Kansas for a while, and came back to Michigan, probably about 20 years ago or so.
Okay.
So, my dog, sorry.
That's okay.
So came back to Michigan and just doing the cowboy thing here, which, people talk about being lonely. Try being a cowboy singer in Michigan.
Yeah, that's about it. Especially in the wintertime, right?
Oh yeah.
Well, give me a little background on how you got started in the whole music business thing.
Well, I started playing guitar. Oh man, I was probably 10 or 12 years old, and I won't tell you how long ago that was, but it's been a while. And started out, I was really into blues, so I'd listen to all the old blues singers, Muddy Waters, B.B. King, Albert King, and then it sort of morphed from that into, back in the 70s, it was the big singer-songwriter era, and I started listening to a bunch of singer-songwriters, and I really liked the acoustic sound, and so I did that for quite a few years. And then I'll never forget, I had a woman that was a manager for me, and she also worked as my booking agent. And she had booked a gig for me at a local club, and I was running late. Now, I always dress in cowboy boots, cowboy hat. I mean, I have horses, cattle, and I've always dressed that way. That's just the way I dress.
Sure.
So I was in a hurry to get to the show, so I didn't bother changing. And so I went in, sure enough, I'm wearing my cowboy hat and my boots and everything. And after the gig was over, the manager looked at me. She says, you really should capitalize on this cowboy shtick. And I thought, cowboy shtick? This is who I am. But it got me thinking, though. It's like, you know what? This is who I am. Why try to be a folk singer when I'm a cowboy? I'm a cowboy singer. So then I started sort of morphing over into the Western genre. But my taste in music, as you said on the CD, it's pretty obvious. I have pretty eclectic taste in music. I love jazz, I love blues, I love Motown. In fact, on the album, there's even a Cajun tune on there. So I love about everything. So that's pretty much what shines through on the CD is just a real eclectic taste in music.
Well, that's great. That's great. Well, the album is called Screen Door, and you can visit bobmarshallmusic.com or the bobmarshallband.com. They'll take you right to the same website, and you can check out Bob's music. And he has a couple other albums, one called Other Horses That Run Far Away, and I love this title, As Good as My Dog Thinks I Am. I love that title.
Yeah, we can only hope that we're as good as our dog thinks we are.
That's right. Absolutely. Well, Screen Door's got 12 fantastic songs, and you're going to hear some of them here after we get done. And
if I could interrupt you.
Yeah.
There was a printing error on the album. There's actually 13 tunes on there.
Oh, okay.
And the 7th tune is the one that's not listed, and it's called The Wolf We Choose to Feed. And it's written by me. And it's a song about sort of the parable, the Sioux Indian parable, about an old man talking to his young son. And so there's actually 13 on there. Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, that's okay. It'll be a bonus track, right? You'll have that, Tell me about Heaven Has a Screen Door. I absolutely love this song, and you co-wrote this one, too.
Yeah, I have a friend that I co-write with sometimes down in Nashville. And so usually the deal is we'll get together and we'll look at each other and say, well, what do you want to write about? And he says, I don't know. What do you want to write about? I don't know. What do you want to write about? Well, I've had this song idea for a long time, and I think everybody has that special place that it's always like heaven to them. It's that special place they always think about. It gives them a warm, fuzzy feelings. And my place was always the house where I was raised. My mother would, make homemade bread, and you'd have the alfalfa smells out in the field. And so, although the preachers might talk about, pearly gates and the golden throne with angels singing and clouds and stuff, that wasn't my idea of heaven. My idea was heaven was where I was raised. So, and I think everybody has that special place that they can relate to, and I think that's why so many people have really enjoyed that song, because they all have that same thing. It's like, okay, my heaven is, it could be that little stream where I used to hang out as a kid, or the lake up north, or wherever. So that was the idea behind the song, and we just sat down, and it didn't take too long. I mean, the initial stage of the songwriting went pretty quick, but then there's a lot of fine tuning that goes along with it. But yeah, I'm really very happy with that song. I'm very pleased with it.
I like it too, and I notice a common thing. You've got Heaven Has a Screen Door, and Halo and Noose, and He Talks to God. Some very spiritual and deep meaning songs you got here.
Yeah, I wouldn't say Halo and Noose is so spiritual. Yeah, the idea being on that one is there's only a couple inches between the two of them. So it depends on what steps you take in life as to which one you're going to end up in.
Well, it's still that message in there, and and it makes people think. It's how you live your life, and what's going to happen in the afterlife. It's a lot of things to ponder, and you've done a great job with that. And you also do poetry, write poetry as well.
I do. Yeah, I do storytelling as well, and when I was a folk artist, I would always listen to folk artists, and they'd write songs that were 6 minutes long, and just verse after verse after verse. And I always wanted to stand up and say, "Get on with the story." It just took forever. So I have a breakdown as the way I look at something. If I'm going to write about it, if I have an interest in writing about it, and if I can do it in a couple verses and a chorus, it's a song. If I need more than that, then it's a poem. If I need more than 5 or 6 verses, it's a story.
Well, that brings up an interesting question from a songwriter standpoint. When you're writing these lyrics, do you have a tune in mind already, or is it lyrics first and then music after that?
Over the years, what I've done is I've actually become more of a lyricist. So I start out with lyrics. Sometimes the tune is there, and I'll write to it. Or what I frequently will do is there's a tune on there, for example, "A Hole in My Rope," and I said, okay, I want to do a bluesy kind of song. So I come up with some sort of blues melody in my head, and I write the lyrics to that. There's another song when I got together with my buddy down in Nashville. I said, okay, let's write something that sounds Motownish, and so we ended up with what's the name of the song now? Geez, I'm drawing a blank. "I Won't Need to Say a Thing." Mm-hmm. So sometimes I have a genre in mind, and I'll write for that. Sometimes I'll have an idea in mind. I'll just write the lyrics. There's some local political stuff going on in the town where I just outside of, and they're trying to ban chickens inside the village limit.
Okay.
It's about 8 verses long about banning chickens.
Does that mean Kentucky Fried Chicken's out of there too, or?
No. So I'm talking about the homeless chickens wandering the streets with no place to lay their comb. So it just depends what gives me the idea. And sometimes it's a poem. Sometimes I say, no, that's a song. And sometimes I'll just say, no, this is a story.
That's great. Homeless chickens. You heard it first right here on My Kind of Country, folks. And don't get no better than that. That's great. I love it. Tell me about the song "I'm Seeing Red." This is one of my favorites on this disc.
Well, like I told you, I'll get together with my buddy down in Nashville, and, well, what do you want to write about? I don't know. What do you want to write about? I don't know. And so one day I was down at his house, and he said, what do you want to write about? I said, let's write about a woman. That's always a good place to start. And he said, well, what about the woman? And I said, let's write about a woman that I'm scared to death of. And I had a very bad experience with my first marriage. She was a redhead. so consequently, I'm always a little bit leery of redheads because she had a really bad temper. And so that's where the song came from. It was like we wrote a song about a woman that I was afraid of, and that would be a redhead.
That's great. You've done some work as a rodeo clown too, is that right?
No, I was a steer wrestler.
Oh, you were a steer wrestler. Okay.
Sometimes, as badly as I steer wrestled, it was kind of a comic experience.
Well, I tell you, rodeo clowns are the most serious workers at a rodeo, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, those guys put their life on the line every time, you know.
Yeah. No, I was a steer wrestler, so that's, people always ask me what's the hardest part about steer wrestling, and I always tell them the hardest part about steer wrestling is getting the cattle into those little wrestling trunks. Those little shorts too much.
I love it. Tell me about Rodeo Queen Deluxe. Speaking of rodeos,
that was one of those songs. I was traveling, and ask any guy that's ever rodeoed, and ask them about a barrel racer, and they'll have stories about barrel racers. So this was sort of a conglomeration of different barrel racers I've known over the years, and so that's where Rodeo Queen Deluxe came from. They're sometimes real hard charging. They're sometimes meek and mild. They're usually they're not like your average women. They're special.
That's very true. There's a song on here, and if I'm not mistaken, it's an Ed Bruce song. You just can't see him from the road. Is that correct?
And I love that song. Chris Ledoux made it fairly well known, and what I did probably about a year and a half ago or so is I asked my fans, and I had a survey set up. I said, on my next album, meaning Screen Door, if there's one song you would like me to do that's a cover song, what would you like it to be? And it was a really, really close tie. It wasn't a tie. It was really a close run thing between The Dance by Tony Arata, made famous by Garth Brooks, or You Just Can't See Them from the Road, and Just Can't See Them won out. And I'm really glad it did. I love that song. It's just got some beautiful imagery. And what's funny about it is I started performing that song out live. I used to haul horses out to North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, Wyoming, and I was in South Dakota one morning and didn't have anything to do, and I said, I'm just going to get on this 2-lane road, and I'm going to travel west until I find some place for breakfast. Well, it was about 3 hours later, and I was in Wyoming, and I found this little place. But along the way, I saw the coolest thing. There were probably about 6-7 cowboys moving this really large herd of cattle right down the center of the main street of this little tiny town. And I said, that's people just don't see that anymore.
Yeah.
It was just a beautiful sight for me. It reminded me of my father. My father was a cowboy. It reminded me of my father and all the work we had done before with cattle and horses and stuff. And so I started doing You Just Can't See Them from the Road after I saw that. And people just really, really appreciated the song. So that's one of the reasons why they voted for it for inclusion on my album.
Well, that's great. It's a great song. And it's a fantastic album. It's called Screen Door, Bob Marshall. And BobMarshallMusic.com or BobMarshallBand.com is the place to go. We will put that information on our Facebook page as well. And, Bob, I'm going to play some of your music right now, and I want to thank you so much for taking time to be on the show.
Thanks, Scott. I really appreciate it. Hope all your listeners really enjoy the music.
Well, I'm sure they will. You're going to get lots of airplay on My Kind of Country. And please visit BobMarshallBand.com, BobMarshallMusic.com, and you'll hear more of this music on our show, and check out his tour dates and all the other great stuff, too. Bob Marshall, thanks so much for being on My Kind of Country.